live Tesla community show.
Howdy,
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tesla Life. Here we are at number 252 on, what is it? It's the 4th? The 4th of May. May the 4th be with you.
I thought you guys were coming in hot with that.
Exactly. It's Star Wars Day here. The once a year where Patrick's lightsaber in the background makes complete sense. Speaking of Patrick, how are you doing today, sir? Out in the out on the West Coast?
Yeah, it's I love this time of year. We're making more than we're using with our solar panels. It's nice because the sun is shining and yet the AC doesn't have to be on yet. It's beautiful.
Indeed.
Fantastic. And what's that? Is that a Shell shirt you're wearing?
It's just a little different than Shell might have actually endorsed. Yes.
A little bit different than the Shell symbol. I see. Yes. Okay.
Bit
Very
of parody,
good.
Bit of fun. Yeah.
Also joining us, Mr. Casey Green from the DC area. How are you today, sir?
Doing pretty well. My manager cut my time close here.
Yeah.
But speaking to what Patrick said about the output, my house in South Carolina had its first negative bill of the year at a negative 2 cents.
That's a bonus. Always nice to get those negative bills.
Yes, if only they would pay. Supposedly they automatically cut a check in November. That never happens.
Well, you get to bill against a pay period next time, right? They just kind of
just roll steal it at the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, so the way ours works, if you have any, they roll it over, but at the end of the year, if there's any surplus, it gets donated to they call it the WARM program. So
they steal it.
Well, they give it to people in need, and I'm okay with that too.
Can you write it off?
Oh, that's a good question. They probably do. I don't get to.
No, I mean, I know they can, but I think you can too because that's a cash value.
Yeah, that I'm not at a so we end up we get extra here, but by the time it gets to November, December, January, we're using everything.
Yeah.
So I'm still not net positive for the year, just part of the year.
I think I'll have a problem come when it comes time to replace the natural gas, the methane furnace with a heat pump. At that point, then I might actually be positive all year round, and then we'll have to see.
Awesome.
I'm not wishing it break anytime soon because those are expensive. But
well, but if you're going to be using more electricity because you're not using methane, how does that help? That's
because the methane comes from the same provider.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Those are two different bills, utility bills for me.
They are here, which is amazing because it's the same utility here as well, which is just.
But still two bills. That's efficient.
Hey, so I wanted to touch upon this story. This was kind of a good news story that was published out of St. John's, Newfoundland, far east coast of Canada. There was a gentleman there who has FSDBeta. One of the lucky Canadians that are trying it out. And he invited the local news crew down to come for a drive with him. And he explained to them how FSDBeta is, what it encompasses, how it's used, and then took the film crew on a little ride through the streets of downtown St. John's, which of course is rustic. It's an old city. It's one of the oldest cities in Canada. So some of the downtown core, the streets are narrow. It's difficult to get around, bumpy roads, all those kind of things, kind of like a Boston, if you would think of for the U.S. So, but what was refreshing on this video, and we've put the link for all our stories in the show notes. So if you want to go look at the video, you certainly can. But what I found refreshing was that he actually explained to the news group how it works, what it can and cannot do, what the driver's responsibilities are, and that no, not everyone in North America has this available to them and is driving out willy-nilly. He explained about how the driver has to be in complete control at all times, be able to grab the wheel, to hit the brake, depending on what happens with the vehicle, understanding that the car could do something unexpected, and that the driver is responsible for all those conditions. And that was kind of refreshing to watch compared to some of the hit pieces we've seen when someone has just given the car and they go out on their own little run and wreak havoc or pretend to wreak havoc in the cabin, and it's really not wreaking havoc on the outside. So
or worse, they reverse engineer the safety protocol.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I agree with you, Mark. This was one of the best FSD contents that's out there because of all the reasons that you said. It wasn't about hype. It wasn't about slamming on Tesla. It was just about how does it really work and what does it really do. And he talked about how he has his hands at the ready all the time because this is beta and it could do the wrong thing. But yet it showed what it can do and how it can do it really well, even in a difficult environment.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And to do it on the version that they're on is also a plus because it is leaps and bounds above some of the previous versions to the point where, since the birth of my daughter, I've driven less than a mile manually. She's only ever seen FSDBeta driving. This is only 10 days, but still.
She may never get a driver's license.
Yeah.
Might not.
This could be a whole different world for your daughter, Casey. That's for sure.
Yes. I'll still teach her how, but who knows if she'll get the permit or not.
Exactly. So so take a look if you've got a couple minutes. It's not all that long, and it's kind of interesting.
Absolutely.
Next, let's talk a little bit about some superchargers in Norway.
Yes.
And of course, these superchargers are part of the Tesla program that allows all EV owners, ones that are capable of doing so, plugging into a CS charger that's associated with this particular Norwegian charger. I believe almost all the chargers in Norway are now switched over. Or no, that wasn't Norway. Norway had like a dozen.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's one of these dozens. And what has happened is that Tesla has added cameras to the supercharger site. They've wired them up on poles, and they're looking down on the different supercharger setup. And what they're doing is they're doing a little bit of reconnaissance, trying to figure out what other EV drivers are doing, how they're parking, how they're accepting the charge for their vehicle, if they're running into any issues like the cable is not long enough or things of that nature. They're able to record the action that happens at these superchargers. And they're also providing this little a notice as to what they're doing, so it isn't scaring anybody that Tesla is now involved in some three-letter agency recording of things. What they're doing is they're just examining what's happening, and they are probably taking this information to allow them to have a better experience for other EV drivers and of course Tesla drivers at the same time. Because the last thing you want to do as a Tesla owner is show up at a supercharger where everyone's parked willy-nilly, blocking spaces, whatever, trying to figure out how they can get a charge. So there's an example of that right there. So this is something that Tesla obviously has, expected. And now they're doing a little bit of reconnaissance by recording how much of this actually happens. How many cars, maybe there's a certain car, like in the previous example, the Audi has it in a place that's hard to reach. So they're looking at different possibilities and patterns that happen at this particular supercharger in Norway.
Yeah, that Audi was still taking up 3 spaces, but thankfully only 1 supercharger. But it could have been a minimum of 2 to a maximum of 5, depending on how they parked it.
Yeah, and if you had a trailer, he could have blocked the whole thing.
This is true.
Mm-hmm. I hope they use this for idle fees, because even for Tesla owners, if you are blocking the spot but you don't plug in, you're not going to get charged idle fees. Well, now if they have camera surveillance, they can read your license plate, or if you've been previously plugged in and then unplugged, they know your exact billing information because you just gave it to them when you plugged in as part of their plug-in charge proprietary protocol. So they could just keep charging you, and there's the video evidence of you blocking that spot, and idling fees are part of the deal. So yeah, I hope so. They do
that would
more
actually
of
be
this.
really cool. And in fact, they could extend it to like you said, the easiest way to confirm it is watch who plugs in. But then if they don't move, then continue to charge them. But then even better than that, if a fossil is parked there, just read their license plate and submit it to the police, a towing agency, a toll agency, and just send them a fee.
Right.
Or
yeah,
$800.
Right. Yes. And then also in their navigation system, when they say how many stalls are available, that's just how many are plugged in or not. Well,
Right.
if they have this better observation and data, they can actually show you how many are available. Just how many are not blocked is a better way to phrase it.
Yeah.
I'm certainly hoping that they can take this data and maybe build it into future supercharger sites or modify some of the current ones to better reflect how they're going to be used with all EVs. If this, it certainly looks like Europe is going to be the testing ground. It's certainly looking like they are the ones that are going to get this first in more mass adoption than what's been happening here in North America. Because at this point in North America, no other supercharger has been enabled for another vehicle, to our knowledge. But is it going to require a slightly longer cable? Is the CCS cable maybe have to be stretched an extra 2 or 3 feet? Is that what's going to make a difference for most to be able to follow the rules and park between the lines and such? So I guess we're going to have to watch this for a while, and it'd be interesting to see if they roll this out to more than just one supercharger for this surveillance.
Yeah, I think they should just start putting cameras as standard equipment into the superchargers.
Yeah, because right now we've got one in the U.S. where they had that vandalization, plus whoever already had them on site with the host, and now this one. So, like maybe these will pan out and they'll actually do something with it. I also like that.
And they should certainly do it for those 3 or 4 that we know of in the U.S. that have Starlink.
Yeah, especially them. Yeah, because then they have to pay data.
They should be first on the list.
Yeah, I guess they do have to pay data because it's from one company to the other. But either way, I also like that. I like that they to get the notice out rather than making a label or anything. They took a 8.5 by 11 sheet of metal and laser etched the printed document onto it.
That shows that's going to be there for a while, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's still just a memo. It's got the date on it. It's got the little QR code.
Right, it's not just behind some piece of plastic.
Yeah. But you can recycle it. Done.
Let's move on to West Virginia, which has no connection to what we just talked about. But one of you guys might know a little bit about this story about Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. He made a comment recently in the media about his displeasure of the Biden administration rolling out new EV credit system that he complains is not what America needs. And he followed up quickly with what he would do instead is roll out some credits for hydrogen vehicles.
So does he like screwing over his own people? Because Virginia is a coal country and electric cars can run on coal. Hydrogen comes from methane, and last I checked, Virginia was not a methane country. Or West Virginia. So.
State.
Yeah, this guy's
the hills,
so many levels about so many things. I wouldn't assume that you could do rational thinking and figure out what's in his head.
I can. Who's paying him for this? Because
yes, that's perfectly reasonable, I guess. Yeah, he's obviously being fed a line and just buying it hook, line, and sinker. And
right, I mean, because you got coal mines shutting down all over the state. They're talking about saving jobs and blah blah blah. Feeding the coal plant. As much as all of us are against the coal plants, it's still easier to clean up one coal plant than it is to clean up 1 million cars, or 1 million cars plus the 3 hydrogen water cracking facilities or whatever.
Yeah, and I can see why if you're part of the fossil fuel industry, you want people to move to hydrogen because you can still control the supply and have them if electricity, we were just talking about how we have solar panels. We can make it ourselves. We don't have to have some fueling depot that's in our loop. And with hydrogen, you're not going to produce hydrogen at home. You're going to make it. You're going to go get whatever they made for you. And sure, they say, oh, it can be made from electrolysis from renewable energy, but it's not going to be. If you look at it today, the vast majority, like 99% of hydrogen is gray hydrogen. It's not blue hydrogen or green hydrogen, but they take these things that are a fraction of a percent, and that's what all the hype and publicity is about the green hydrogen, even though it's going to just be a token effort.
I wonder if they had never canceled the Honda Fill, if somebody would have made a natural gas to hydrogen generator for the Honda Clarity. The Honda Fill, the Honda Fill, for those of you who don't know, was a product that you would get it installed like your stove or dryer, and it would do a slow fill overnight of your Honda Civic CNG, and so it would compress the gas slowly as you slept. So you'd come in half full, and in the morning, in time for your commute, it would be 3/4 or fully full, and then you could do it all over again. So you
minute by minute throughout the night, it would slowly build a high pressure bomb that was attached to your house.
Exactly.
I don't know why this didn't take off. I just can't think of any reason that people would be concerned.
Building the pressure higher and higher throughout the night as you sleep soundly in your house next to the bomb that's outside attached to your gas main. But I don't know why it didn't work.
It did solve the infrastructure issue that, like, where do I get natural gas if I don't own a garbage dump or a fleet? It is just my commuter car, so it's not like I need this thing to be able to go cross country. So in California, Canada, and parts of the East Coast, you could actually get them to install this. They tap your gas line and pop it in. And so I was thinking, well, they could do that with hydrogen, but there's no hydrogen pipe to everybody's house, so it would have to be from natural gas, and that thing was canceled. So.
Well, it seems like Senator Joe may be getting some money from maybe some gasoline companies, because, of course, we know that big oil, one of their moves to a greener economy is through hydrogen. That's what they want to do because, of course, as mentioned, it has to be refined. Someone has to refine the hydrogen to get it to the point where it can be used in vehicles. And who better to do that than the large petrochemical companies / oil companies that currently have those type of refineries already and would love to put a markup on all the energy that currently is going or would go into hydrogen vehicles.
What about that experiment with the coal gasification? Did that ever become commercial? Because if so, then no, that's not going to work then. I don't know where he's getting the money for this thing or why it's good for his people.
Anyways, I've had this argument with others that just aren't quite aware of how hydrogen is actually produced. I've had people say, the electric vehicle and a hydrogen vehicle both use an electric motor, but the question becomes is why do I need to have to refine something using fossil fuel, typically, as Patrick mentioned, to make it into a product that can then be converted to electricity and then use the electric motor when if I just add a battery to a vehicle and I plug it in, I've got a direct link. I don't have to go through those other steps. And there's no extra refining and there's no burning of extra fossil fuel. That all goes out the window with the electric structure we already have in our homes. So
there's no explosion risk, just fire.
Yeah, it just doesn't make
and
sense.
And that's a minimal risk.
It doesn't make sense on the personal vehicle front.
Right.
So
It doesn't make sense environmentally. It doesn't make sense financially. It doesn't make sense from an efficiency perspective. There's no case for hydrogen for personal transportation, in my opinion.
There's one. I covered it a couple weeks ago. There's this island in the United Kingdom that their connection to the mainland is I guess the main island I should say is too small to get all of their wind energy from the island to the big island. So they send some of it across as reformed hydrogen from cracking water. But that's the only case.
So my complete sentence was there's no case for it for personal transportation. And the one you just mentioned was not personal transportation. I'm not saying there's no case for hydrogen. There's no place it's usable. There are a few.
Yeah. But like even that, like you could then stick that in your totem Mirai on the island, but even then it's like why bother?
Well, the problem is they have too much renewable energy. So I think you don't need to convert it to use it.
Exactly.
Ship
So we'll
mega
see,
packs back and forth on a container ship.
We'll see if
I
Joe
would just install
gets some
bigger
traction on
cable.
this. But the other thing to mention here is that democracy is not a spectator sport. If you're after clean energy to be used in electricity to power transportation in the future, we've all got to act. We have to alert our representatives. We have to let them know over and over again that this is what the path that we want. This is what we want our taxpayer money used for. And it has to be prompted to them over and over. It's a pain in the butt. I understand that. But if we don't do it, nobody else will. And then what you'll get is the lobby money will continually push politicians in a certain way. And if we don't want that to happen, we're going to have to act. So again, join your local EV group. There's power in numbers. And let's write our representatives regularly and let them know where we want them to go with our tax dollars and how it is to be used.
Yeah, we saw several large reasons for why we should be doing this week, both here and in Canada. And as Mark said, contact your reps, because if you contact their office via email, letter, fax, or phone call, they have to log it. And so no matter how much they try to hand wave it away, I just got 10,000 calls when I did X. Whoops. How am I going to get voted in again if I keep doing X?
Yep. Power in numbers, definitely. Next, Casey's got something here about superchargers in Germany.
Yeah. So one of the things that they keep telling us at these shareholder calls is that how many percentage points that the Tesla fleet grew by, and how they plan to keep up with the supercharger network and the service center network. Well, we've got a story out of Germany how Tesla wants to expand the network by 56% as new EVs flood the market. Also, as they start to enable non-Teslas to use the market. So it goes hand in hand. So 56% in 2022 is what they want to grow by. So that's impressive, and it's a good start. And if they could also do that in California, it'll be great.
Did you say this
again?
is an expansion?
It's showing that it's not just North America. They're looking at the markets where these vehicles are being purchased, and they're reacting to it, which is great, because again, they own the infrastructure. They know how many times their chargers are being utilized, and therefore they should be able to react with new supercharger or stalls added to a certain area.
Yep. And so figures-wise, right now, Germany has about 4% of the total superchargers with 123 sites. And that's only going to improve. And as Mark was saying, they've got the data not just of where you bought the car, where you registered it, blah, blah, blah. They can see you driving around, assuming you haven't turned off the switch, which you're probably not going to if you want to use the app the way that you would like to use it. So that will then help them know where you're going to need it. They see, everybody always goes on vacation for German Holiday 1. From here to here, so they make sure that there's actually stuff you can use en route, so you're not stuck waiting in line or cutting the line like I did in Elizabeth, New Jersey when it broke.
Line cutter. Oh, jeez.
They were squabbling, and I just replaced it with another guy that looks like this and another black SUV, but bigger. Turn around like
just squeezed right in.
That doesn't look right.
Can't believe we let you back on the show after that.
I apologize.
After he got to the next supercharger.
I did.
Here's a story that has just hit the news. Tesla headlights, which we know have changed recently to allow them to be more dynamic, to be able to use different rows of LEDs in the lights, not to just to display something, but of course to be adaptive, to follow the road in certain countries that allow that to happen. A report has come out that some of those lights on Model 3s have been changed again back to the old headlights. And it was reported, it was just earlier in the week. And then just today, we got a report out of a Canadian location that was delivering vehicles, that some of those vehicles with the old headlights showed up there as well. So in a few countries, this has now shown up. So no real comment from Tesla on this, although I would guesstimate that they found a couple skids of extra headlights that were laying around, and maybe they just worked them into the production to get rid of them and keep moving on.
Hey, boss.
Not sure about that, but that's a good possibility.
The shipment of matrix lights for this month is late. Can we use them warranty designated parts? Yeah, just throw them in the line.
Yeah, this is what life looks like in a world where the supply chains are not fully operational. You make do with what you can, and you keep things moving as best you can.
Yeah. And again, probably not going to matter to most people that are purchasing a vehicle. In the vast majority of cases, they won't even realize that. Super geeks like us that are watching this stuff every day of the week, we'll pick up on it and complain about it. But the normal average Joe purchaser will never notice something like this, or even know it happened to them.
And I think it literally is probably a case of supply chain logistics, because matrix lights to be used as they are intended just became legal a few months ago here in the States. And I don't imagine they would roll it back, especially as Mark said, in several countries. This sounds more like, hey, we're out of matrix lights and we want to keep this line rolling. What do we do? Hey, can we tap them warranty parts that are sitting in the bin over there? And so
here's a question. What do you guys think with a regular headlight in a vehicle? If they didn't have it to replace, could they put a matrix light in place of a regular headlight on a vehicle as a swap? Say a light failed under warranty or something.
Yeah.
Do you think they could put a warranty, a matrix light in place, or would that require a software change?
I think it would definitely require a software change, but I think it would be one that they could handle, because when you look at the original lights for the Model 3, they are already running on the CAN bus, as were the refresh lights on the facelift lights on the Model S, and then all of the Model X's. So that's like something we come across occasionally when Rich Rebuilds and the others want to do mods. They have to get the old lights in order to be able to control them manually, because the new ones are all software based.
Right. So when the car powers on, it's going to do this inventory of everything, and the software has support for all of these various variations. So,
but it does have to know that a 2022 can have the old lights. But I imagine that's just a matter of the service center telling engineering, or in this case, it coming down correctly from the factory. Yeah.
Our next story is kind of going with the theme that we had for the title of our show tonight, which is basically Giga scaling up. And this story was about Fremont Factory running somewhere 10 to 20% above its capacity that it typically pushes out. So we've heard Elon speak about how they're going to make improvements at Fremont. They're going to increase the run rate there. I'm not sure if this is part of it or if this is just Tesla pushing, because, of course, Shanghai was down for a number of weeks because of COVID lockdown. And maybe Tesla is pushing harder at Fremont as well as maybe Berlin to push out more and more vehicles to make up the difference. Maybe they won't make up the difference, but they're trying to shorten the distance between those 2 points.
Yeah, I think it was like 20 days or 3 weeks, one or the other.
So the unending drone army that flies over all Tesla plants at this point noticed that there was a bit more activity happening at Fremont. And this article report was written up indicating that they believe that Tesla's on a bit of a push at Fremont, pushing out more and more vehicles, getting it, again, somewhere between 10 and 20% above capacity. So good to see. And again, that leads us to the flexibility of multiple gigafactories. When there's a parts supply shortage, when there's a problem like a COVID lockdown, once all these plants are up and running, scaled at proper amounts, they can all work to help each other to still get the same amount of vehicles out or more if they can work together as to scheduling and the production that they have ongoing. So this is just, as we've talked about before, having them in multiple continents just makes a lot of sense for Tesla and helps the company out as a whole.
Imagine if this had happened when they were only running out of Fremont. Like, they would have been in a world of hurt had their only factory shut down for 3 weeks.
Right. So this is this again is a plus for them. And as even with Berlin and excuse me, and certainly Texas is not anywhere near production capacity at this point. They're not even ramped up fully. This is going to get better and better as time goes along as well. So
especially with Model Y being their best product as far as sales volume, and those plants only making Model Y. Well, Shanghai does make Model 3 as well, but the Austin and Berlin only make Model Y. And then you've got the question I had was, for this to be over percentage, are they running extra shifts? Have they cranked up the robots, or like, how are they doing this?
Well, they'd have to crank up everything, not just the robots. Even the people in the lines would have to be working more effectively or faster or something.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, like, if they had like a 2 or 3 shifts, if they went to 4, would that be enough to do it without putting a stress on the people and the equipment?
Good question. Not quite sure. Okay. Next, Patrick should take this story.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this the annual shareholder meeting?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. How'd I guess? That's so I was a little late to the show, but yeah, Mark, I'll take this one. So Tesla's annual 2022 shareholder meeting will be held on August 4th. So this is where all the shareholder initiatives are voted on by shareholders, and sometimes the board has recommendations. We'll probably, if there's anything non-vegan in the car, we'll hear from PETA.
You know it.
The agenda has not been announced yet, but one thing we do know for sure they're going to be voting on is the stock split.
Yes.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the shareholders would approve or not, and I'm sure they would approve the split. But then the board after that gets to decide what it'll actually be. Is it 20 for 1 or 10 for 1? Sometimes that's included, and the shareholders get to vote on the exact one. Other times it's not. The board just wants them to approve it, and they'll decide after the fact. So we will find out soon. But that particularly, I know that you're just changing, like a dime into 10 pennies. There's no, the value is the same, but there's a huge psychological impact. It's a signal that the company thinks the stock is going to grow. It allows people who are not able to buy fractional shares to buy full shares. There's a lot of good things that can come out of that. And it looks like Tesla's credit rating should soon be upgraded. A lot of positive stuff. So I'm looking forward to this.
They're finally getting a credit rating increase after they've gone like cash positive on everything.
Right. Yeah. If you compare their rating with their peers, they're far below where they should be, and so I'm looking forward to that upgrade.
Yeah. So in just 3 short
what
months.
What do you two think? My guess is 5 to 1.
At least 5 to 1, because that's what they did last time, right?
Yep.
Now 20 to 1, like they're talking about in the chat, that does sound like fun. I mean, because as Patrick said, not only does that show confidence, but it also does get you a little bit of a bump because everybody who can now afford full shares is buying them. The other thing to consider is the employee stock purchase plan might not be set up for fractional shares. So if they had to buy whole shares and it costs 3 weeks' wages, that's a problem.
Right. Yeah.
So what's your guess, Casey?
I don't have one, but I like that 20 to 1, but 5 to 1 sounds reasonable because they did that last time.
I'm hoping they do at least 10 to 1.
That'll be fun. The other thing is, if you wanted to cash a little bit out like Elon did for Twitter, then you're not giving as many away. You're just a smaller portion of your pie if you do that.
It's just,
I mean, not buying Twitter, because how many of us can do that? But I meant like if you wanted to just get cash a little bit.
If you want to raise X dollars, it's whatever percentage of your porportfolio that is. So the share count doesn't help you there.
No, but if you only wanted $100 out, you wouldn't have to cash out $1,000 to get your $100 out.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Good point.
Very good.
I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm curious what they'll find in PETA, though.
Next, it's been found, I believe this was from some place in Asia. I think it was reported that a Model S was delivered with a screen that was tiltable. So we had known in the past that the Model S, upon release, actually had some mechanisms behind the screen that would allow the screen to tilt back and forth.
Yeah.
And this just didn't work because the actuators or motors that would be in the system were not there for initial rollout.
Right.
But it's been indicated that the swivel screen has now happened at a couple of deliveries. Casey's got this Larry Lai photo up that they're able to do it with a software touch on the screen, and it will move the screen. Yep. So that's interesting. I would guess, and I want your two opinions on this, but what about all the Model S's that have been delivered to date without this? Is this going to be a recall? Is this going to be?
I wouldn't say a recall, but
is this going to be where they're going to send out a note to everybody that has an S and say, "Come in at your convenience," or
your USB ports are ready?
Yeah, because they all seem to have the mechanism. It's just that they were missing motors.
Right. So the early reservations, they all actually listed it as a feature, and then it wasn't in there. And so we figured, oh, it's coming with a software update. And then people opened the car to find out that no, it's not in there at all. So for those people whose sales documents said it, even if Tesla doesn't want to do the right thing, they have a leg to stand on to get it fixed. But afterwards, Tesla removed that language from the screen. So I don't know if you would be able to pay to retrofit it, or if they're just going to pretend it wasn't a thing until now. In this video that we're going to see here, it sounds American, and the power frunk is aftermarket. But as Mark was saying, I think we saw in Singapore or Taiwan, we saw a couple in the showroom. So it's not just that this guy added it when he added his power frunk. Are you guys ready for me to play that?
Go ahead.
All right, here we go.
Power frunk. This.
I like that. People were saying it's noisy.
That's pretty cool.
It's not that noisy, and it does work exactly like Sandy Munro speculated it would, where he's like, yeah, it's going to go this way and that way. I figured it might actuate them both and kind of do it smoothly, but he was right. It would go all the way in and then all the way out.
Yeah.
That power frunk, the integration with the screen is pretty cool.
Yeah, the current ones do that right now as well. When the hood latch gets a command, they actually intercept that, and they allow it to pass through, but then they also send an open command to their power strut.
I see, that's smart.
Yeah, which is really cool because then when you open it, even though it's already open, it'll close. Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah.
And along with what we were talking about Fremont, Giga Shanghai, of course, the one that was shut down for 3 weeks, they've now indicated that Casey should know this, right?
Yeah.
What's happened there with the volume at Giga Shanghai?
So they filed documents that show that they are going to be increasing production by over 33% in June to 1 million units per year, up from 500,000. Oh man! And then they're also talking about putting in a second factory on the site.
That's the huge news, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we heard that China is going to get a second plant, or we speculated that based on all that was happening. Yeah. But this was an actual letter of intent sent to local officials from Tesla. It was on Tesla letterhead.
Yeah.
And they've outlined their plan or their intent to build a second Gigafactory Shanghai.
So if they build this one as fast as the first Giga Shanghai, which should be actually be even faster because now the site's already prepped and they're just putting another building on it, I think that this would then allow David's prediction of 2.2 million for the company to come from one country.
Oh, but okay, so it took a year, right, to build Shanghai?
Under a year.
It was under a year.
But considering where we're at in this year, there's not going to be any vehicle production out of the new Shanghai building.
But it might be ready in time for some sort of like Red Day festival or something, like early next year. If they keep the pedal to the metal, slam the lightning pedal like they did with the original one, and because now it's not a muddy field, it's a site. They're just building a building on it. Yeah.
So that is dramatic news. Again, with the way that China builds factories for Tesla, all they have to do is announce it. And I would say about 3 days later, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
You mean they don't have to deal with bats and ants and
No,
bombs and cardboard trees and AstroTurf groups?
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up cots in the main factory, in the loading bay, and then when the sun comes up, you're going to build the factory. And when it goes down, you're gonna
come back and do your shift at Gigafactory 1.
I was gonna say the COVID cuts, but yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that's incredible. So obviously, Tesla has scoped out what they need to satisfy the market in China, and they are not even coming close if they're considering building a second Gigafactory in the same city. Obviously, that it makes sense that they think that the number of vehicles they can sell are at least double what they're selling today,
the
which
Australian
is
Cybertruck
remarkable.
From there.
So when they built the initial Shanghai, they said it is not intended for export. They did end up exporting some because Germany was taking too long and other reasons. But this one, I think export is one of their primary. Yeah, exactly. It's in the name. So that they're going to have a very different goal with this one than they did the first one.
It still leaves them in a contention with India, because India doesn't want any of these imported Chinese cars. But maybe now that these two are here, they have another leg in their negotiations. Like, hey, we're still at the table, and you guys are asking all of this of us. How about we can do this, or we can not give you any Chinese cars, or not build the factory?
I think India's real issue is that they're trying to force a manufacturer to build cars within the country.
Yeah,
and I think that's their main goal when they're dealing with other countries, other countries' companies. That's exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they become successful or if some sort of middle ground, as Casey mentioned, happens between them and Tesla. But,
well, I mean, the Indian culture overall, there's a negotiation. Like all of my friends that grew up in India, like they said that their parents would teach them to negotiate from a very young age, and so if everybody's like that, then they're very shrewd negotiators. But at the same time, you've got Tesla, which is, they've got all their legal team, they've got all their negotiation power, and now they're like huge, and they're pretty stubborn as well. So I think that's why this is taking so long, because you've got just two immovable objects, and they're just like, nah.
And the other thing is, and rightfully so, with Tesla in the position they are in, is that they don't know how well their cars will sell in India.
If they keep raising the price,
really, they know that that there is that certain groups of people buy based on income that they have, and it becomes a question of, do we build a whole factory within a country where we don't know the figures that we expect to sell vehicles at? I would be hesitant too.
Right. Time with so many people, that'd be a great place for the robotaxi factory.
That's a good point. Yeah, they do need to open the market up and import cars so they can have an idea of what their sales expectations should be.
That would be a good compromise. Hey, let's try it out, and then we build your factory to size. Yeah. Because Berlin is a lot smaller than the other gigafactories.
Yep. Speaking of Berlin and I don't get these environmental groups. I really don't. But this story came out just yesterday. A group called the Green League, of course. Sounds like they're a little bit of doing some green washing. But the Green League has asked that Tesla's license be revoked because of a paint leak that happened at Giga Berlin. And this is just another one in the long list of environmental groups that have lobbied against Tesla since Tesla announced they were going to build a factory in Brandenburg. And this is something that has plagued them all the way through, as mentioned by Patrick. The different things, bats, ants, cardboard forest. We had the environmental group that chopped up some power lines and made
started a fire in this cardboard forest.
On fire. We've had many issues, and here's another one. My question, of course, to these environmental groups is, have you watched the news lately? Do you know that you and Europe are trying to divest yourself from petroleum products that you're currently getting from a country that is pushing war on other countries in Europe? Maybe you should be looking at other things to complain about, because you have no solution when it comes to moving into a future, Patrick, free
one that's free from fossil fuels.
Exactly. They do not have another solution. Yes, there are other companies that are starting down that path, but the market leader has built a factory that is now up and running and operational in your country, and you want to shut it down because they had a paint leak
inside the building. I
just don't get it. It's like chopping off your nose to spite your face.
So, I mean, like you kept pointing out, they're coming in without solutions. Like Elon's thing is always, hey, I don't mind you coming to me with problems, but come to me with some solutions for those problems. And they could be doing that, or like not being so hardline on what they're doing, because I'm not saying don't care about the environment. I mean, yeah, paint leaks are bad, especially if they're outside or leaking into the drainage.
Well, this one didn't get to a water source; it was within the plant.
Right, and so in that case, you can come through with a compromise, like, hey, you guys, that's approaching some stuff we don't like. How about we do better next time, or show us how you plan to mitigate it, but you don't have to shut them down. But that goes to another environmental group that is now advocating from the U.S. for an environmental shutdown of Starlink, just like we saw in France. What was it, 2 weeks ago?
But of course, this other group happens to run
they own some satellites, yes,
an internet satellite competition, and for whatever reason, they want an investigation to happen on Starlink.
That one I can understand. The one in France was like, what the hell? That one is just like some good old fashioned dirty capitalism.
It just sounds like our first story from the Senator Joe there getting upset that his lobbyists aren't being adequately looked at. People are surpassing him for electricity. I just don't. It's so it's always follow the money.
Yeah.
Follow the money, and you will typically see the root of the problem or where it's coming from, the base of the problem, the base of who is at this, and their reasoning will become more clear once you follow the money.
Well, Hockey Day asked a good question of what fuel is powering the Giga presses, and it comes up on Wikipedia. They say it's electric, so it's an electric arc furnace. Pretty cool. I was also thinking methane.
Yeah, and anytime you're manufacturing something, there's going to be some associated carbon footprint.
Oh yeah.
Right. So what matters is the lifetime of it. So right off the line, an electric vehicle does have a larger carbon footprint, but 10 years later, it's going to be like a third. I mean,
by the second oil change of the gas car, they are equal. So if you throw away your gas cars by the time they need their second oil change, then a gas car is cleaner for you. But I don't know anybody who does that.
That's quite the short lifespan, yeah. If you plan on getting it totaled on the drive home, then you should buy a gas car. Otherwise...
Oh, man. Yeah, so that was a perplexing story. I don't understand why I just don't get it. What's going on in Berlin? I'm wondering if the other automakers in Germany, BMW, Mercedes, are they facing this type of thing when they build a factory? Do they face the same opposition?
I'm not huge into conspiracy theories, but at this point, it seems like maybe they might be co-funding some of these objections.
Well, how do you know that?
You don't. That's why it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Don't want to necessarily be pointing fingers at them specifically, but It is interesting that and of course we're looking at the Tesla situation all the time. So we get news of these stories and discuss them. We're not looking for a story as to why Mercedes can't build a new plant in Germany, but it's interesting keeping an eye on this as time goes along. Speaking of keeping things, watching them as time goes along, if you want to keep up to date with us throughout the week, please follow us on our Twitter feed at The Tesla Life. You can also follow us on our Facebook feed, The Tesla Life #1. We thank Patrick, of course, for maintaining the Facebook feed with us throughout the week. And of course, we thank Casey for helping produce our live shows that we put on once a week that you're joining us today with. And if you haven't already, please, please, please give us a thumbs up and a subscription. If you haven't already, it's free. It's not going to get any cheaper. And you're helping out the channel and supporting what we're doing here. And we would really appreciate that if you could do so. With that, we've got a bunch of people in the chat room. Any questions out there? We're about 8 minutes early tonight. So if you've got a question, send us a note. Casey or Patrick, do you have anything you wanted to discuss extra tonight? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I had that thing with the Starlink, but I squeezed it in there. Yeah. Speaking of Starlink, my Ethernet adapter has arrived, so now I'm just waiting on them to ship me a pole. So what I think I'm going to do is, if I get some time this weekend, is I'm just going to set it on the ground and see what I get with the Ethernet adapter.
You're not going to mount it to the roof of your Model X?
Oh, no.
Right on the hood. That's the better spot, right?
Right in my field of view. Only affects me when I turn left.
I only make right-hand turns, officers. It doesn't affect me at all.
That's a call back to that Prius. So Hockey Day wants to know, what do we think Austin will be making 1,000 cars a week? I think maybe by the end of the quarter, if not sooner.
And that's an interesting point, because at this point they are shipping out some of those 4680 vehicles. They're still shipping even in multiple colors. They are leaving the factory, but they're still just going to Tesla employees apparently. No one has indicated outside of a Tesla employee that they have actually purchased the car. And of course, on the website, you can't buy this new short-range Model Y. There's no option to do so. So it appears that they're just shipping to employees at this point, because the cars are leaving. They're being made. As Hockey Day has said, we're really not sure the amount they're being made, but they are watching the parking lot and seeing truckloads of them leaving Texas on a regular basis. So it's kind of interesting that they're still working with this. They're obviously wanting to make sure that the 4680 configuration is going to be fine and is set properly. And of course, with employees, you're able to do that without negative media coverage if a problem does pop up at some point in the future.
Another possibility, if it's not all employees, is that you're getting them to the showrooms and you might be stockpiling them for a second half push. Like, hey, get your car at the end of the week. It's ready to go. And then all of a sudden the standard range shows up and people are getting them days after it shows up on the website. Or both.
Yep.
This the Tesla way. Breakneck Trent asks, what would you currently be excited about if there's no Elon Musk?
Yeah, so that's an easy one for me. I was into solar and EVs before there was a Tesla or Solar City. And so it would be a lot. We would still be complaining that the car companies are doing compliance cars and they're not putting enough effort into this. And it would be more like, 2010 than it is today as far as availability and things. So I'd be even more riled up, because I'd be like, come on, you can do this. Stop jerking me around and actually commit.
I have a feeling that Patrick would have modded his Chevy S10 about 3 times now, and it would be getting 1,000 miles a charge.
Yep, I would have yanked the batteries out of my Prius and put in some lithiums or something.
Yes, yeah.
I have to say that my adventure into EVs started with Tesla, but it started with a vehicle that I could not afford. Right. So it got me interested. I was able to test drive it. but it was not obtainable for me at the price of a Model S at the beginning. So
that was the original P85.
That was what I test drove. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was something that just wasn't obtainable. But when I saw the Model 3 was on the horizon, I was able to hold out. And actually, I didn't quite hold out because I bought another EV, and that got me introduced into the world and gave me a little flavor of other vehicles outside of Teslas. So our family's actually owned a few different EVs, and that's given me some perspective when I did get a Tesla as to what the differences actually were.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was a young dude, and they just flipped me some keys to $100,000+ vehicles. Said, "Go have fun." And I was like, "Oh, this is a new experience." Even though I did sell cars at the time, that it was not something that we ever would have done, and it left an impression. It did. And as Mark said, my first EV ended up being not a Tesla because I couldn't afford a Model S or a Roadster, and eventually came around after also owning numerous plugins, and this company just made it easier. They were already ready building the stuff I was interested in, the solar panels and the electric cars, and they put big old computers in them. So those were my three things right there: cars, computers, and green energy, all in one package.
All together in one big package.
Yeah,
exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. Well, with that, Casey, any shout outs for the end of the show?
So I've got the Sunday shows. Obviously, with the new daughter, I haven't been working as hard as I could be on the pre-recorded shows, and I'm still working on them, but they're coming slowly, very slowly. So you can find all of that at youtube.com/KCGreen. That's KACEYGREEN.
Very
good. And Patrick, what do you got cooking this coming week?
Well, as always, I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org, and I blog occasionally at carswithcores.net. I just started looking at the Model S originally came out in 2012. Well, now here we are a decade later. How has it changed during that decade? And inflation adjusted, what do the current extended range cost versus that Model S 85? And it's not a P85, not an 85D, just an 85. Rear wheel drive. And,
yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting comparison to look at the evolution of innovation. There you go. That should be my new title for that one. I might go change it. It's not out yet. So.
Oh man.
Coming soon.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, again, if you haven't clicked that like button, this is your last chance. Please do it. Press subscribe if you haven't already. And come back next week. Join us. And together we will find out what is going on in the Tesla life.
Yes. Programming note, if you are somebody who also listens to the podcast, or if you're listening to the podcast now, this is going to sound weird. But anyway, if you're somebody who watches the video and the podcast, I will be getting the last two, the current episode and the last week, out tonight. Like I said, new baby, and I was going to spend some time with her rather than slaving over the MP3 console.
Yep.
And also, thank you to what?
Lee Moon.
Yeah, Lee Moon. But Amazon is talking to me about Mercer Meyer.
I didn't hear it.
So the stunner's working, but we'll catch you all on the flip side.
Good night, everyone.
Stay positive. Test negative.
Sounds coming from the laptop.
Sounds fine.
Okay, good.